and conference.
Breaking! Emmanuel Macron just delivered a devastating public condemnation of Keir Starmer that has shattered Britain's European diplomatic credibility completely. The French president exposed classified EU negotiations, showing systematic British obstruction of critical security cooperation. 6 European leaders immediately issued statements of support for Macron's position. And what happened next triggered the most serious diplomatic crisis between Britain and Europe since Brexit. The future of Britain's international standing hangs in the balance. If you want to see how this diplomatic meltdown unfolds, hit subscribe right now because British media outlets are deliberately downplaying this extraordinary international incident. Here's what ignited this unprecedented diplomatic confrontation. At precisely 10:17 a.m. today, President Emmanuel Macron addressed the European Parliament in Strasbourg during a major security cooperation summit. The chamber was filled with European leaders and international diplomatic representatives. Macron had received detailed briefings about Britain's negotiating positions from EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen just hours earlier. "I must speak with complete candour about a troubling development in European security cooperation," Macron announced with uncharacteristic directness. The room fell silent. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz leaned forward attentively. European diplomatic corps members exchanged concerned glances. No one anticipated the extraordinary diplomatic breach Macron was about to commit by directly criticising a fellow European leader by name in an official parliamentary address. The assessment Macron delivered stunned international observers with its unprecedented directness, not diplomatic ambiguity. Explicit criticism. The French president methodically outlined 5 major European security initiatives where Britain had promised cooperation but delivered systematic obstruction. Prime Minister Starmer speaks eloquently of European partnership when cameras are present, Macron stated with visible frustration. But behind closed doors, his negotiators undermine every meaningful security proposal. Macron revealed that British representatives had blocked critical intelligence sharing frameworks, obstructed joint defence procurement initiatives, and deliberately delayed unified responses to Eastern European security challenges. Most damaging was Macron's revelation of a confidential meeting in Brussels 3 weeks ago where Britain's Europe minister reportedly told counterparts, "Our public and private positions on European integration necessarily differ. Manage your expectations accordingly." When European diplomatic correspondents sought official British response, Downing Street appeared completely blindsided. "We maintain constructive engagement with all European partners," stammered Foreign Office Minister Catherine West. But Macron continued relentlessly. Britain cannot simultaneously demand European security benefits while rejecting fundamental cooperation responsibilities. This approach is not merely inconsistent, it actively endangers continental security architecture. The European Parliament chamber sat in stunned silence. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk visibly nodded in agreement. Italian diplomatic representatives took extensive notes. Then Macron delivered his devastating conclusion. "I say with profound regret that under current leadership, Britain is failing Europe at precisely the moment Europe most needs unified resolve." Diplomatic veterans with decades of experience described the breach as unprecedented in post-war European relations. Within minutes, 6 European leaders, including German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, issued statements supporting Macron's assessment. By the time emergency diplomatic consultations were hastily arranged, Britain's European reputation had suffered incalculable damage. Meanwhile, ordinary British citizens whose security and prosperity depend on effective European cooperation face the real consequences of this diplomatic breakdown. James Richardson, a 59-year-old export manager from Manchester, saw €4.2 million in European contracts suspended yesterday after continental partners expressed significant concern about UK regulatory alignment stability. "These relationships took decades to build," he told business journalists yesterday, visibly distressed. "Now they're collapsing because of diplomatic games." His company employs 147 people in northern England who now face uncertain futures. Across Britain, similar reports emerge from businesses, research institutions, and security organisations whose European partnerships suddenly face unexpected challenges. While everyday citizens suffer practical consequences, government officials responsible for the diplomatic crisis maintain privileged insulation from its effects. We're talking guaranteed diplomatic pensions, transition to lucrative private, consulting positions, comprehensive healthcare arrangements unavailable to ordinary citizens. The contrast is so fundamentally disturbing that even traditionally government-supportive business organisations expressed alarm. Catherine McGuinness, policy chair at the City UK, described it as diplomatic failure with direct economic casualties in an analysis that resonated across Britain's business community. Small business owners face devastating European market access challenges, while officials who created the diplomatic crisis prepare comfortable post-government career transitions. Is this the global Britain with strong European partnerships that Labour promised during their election campaign? But then something extraordinary happened that dramatically escalated this diplomatic confrontation. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen intervened with unprecedented institutional clarity. At exactly 3:40 p.m., just hours after Macron's parliamentary address, von der Leyen took the extraordinary step of releasing a comprehensive Commission assessment documenting systematic pattern of British negotiating inconsistency, creating significant obstacles to essential security cooperation. For context, this represents remarkable institutional rupture. The Commission typically maintains strict diplomatic neutrality regarding member state criticism of third countries. It simply doesn't happen. But von der Leyen went further. From Commission headquarters in Brussels, she authorised publication of a detailed 47-page analysis that shattered traditional diplomatic confidentiality. European security architecture requires consistent and transparent partner engagement. When established cooperation frameworks face pattern-based obstruction, collective security itself becomes compromised. The document outlined 7 major security initiatives where British negotiating positions had created significant implementation delays. Within hours, NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte issued a carefully worded statement acknowledging coordination challenges requiring prompt resolution. Defence analysts revealed that military planners had privately expressed concerns about British cooperation reliability weeks earlier, but received what one described as political assurances disconnected from operational reality from British defence representatives. International security experts described this public institutional intervention as entirely without precedent in modern European diplomatic relations. Former NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg called it the most significant public identification of cooperation obstacles since France's 1960 NATO withdrawal. The proper functioning of European security architecture represents a foundational requirement of continental stability. When that architecture appears compromised through inconsistent partner engagement, the very structure of collective defence comes into question. The political fallout was immediate and devastating. Cross-party concern emerged with remarkable speed as MPs from across the political spectrum questioned Britain's diplomatic strategy. By early evening, 73 Labour backbenchers had signed an emergency motion calling for full transparency regarding European security cooperation positions and comprehensive parliamentary consultation on negotiating mandates. Cabinet cohesion disintegrated completely. 3 ministers submitted resignation letters within hours. Europe Minister Catherine West, Security Minister Dan Jarvis, and Armed Forces Minister Luke Pollard. Their resignation statements, released in rapid succession, employed strikingly similar language about maintaining credible European partnerships and security cooperation imperatives. But perhaps most damaging were the communications leaked from government European strategy meetings. In messages from a secure channel named Continental Positioning, a senior Foreign Office official allegedly wrote, "Our public European enthusiasm versus private limitation approach has catastrophically backfired. We need fundamental strategy reset immediately." Government diplomatic credibility collapsed entirely as officials who positioned themselves as champions of European partnership faced documented evidence of systematic cooperation. Obstruction. Public reaction appeared unequivocal. An emergency Savanta Comres poll showed 76% of respondents believed the government had damaged Britain's international standing. Traditional Labour constituencies with strong international outlook, from university cities to cosmopolitan urban centres, showed particularly dramatic opinion shifts. International relations organisations reported unprecedented concern about Britain's diplomatic isolation. Business groups organised emergency meetings to assess European market implications. This diplomatic breakdown threatens thousands of British jobs directly dependent on European cooperation, said former CBI Director General Lord Bilimoria during an impromptu business leaders conference where 300 executives assembled despite short notice. Social media exploded with hashtags like number diplomatic disaster and number European isolation trending nationally for 18 consecutive hours. This represented not merely political embarrassment but comprehensive collapse of Britain's European diplomatic credibility. Inside Downing Street, international relations advisors faced complete disarray. Staff described the Prime Minister as entirely disconnected from European diplomatic reality and unable to grasp the economic and security implications. Cabinet ministers with international experience avoided direct communications. Senior diplomatic advisors reported unprecedented concern about relationship repair possibilities. A security official described witnessing Foreign Secretary David Lammy in continuous emergency consultations with European HM ambassadors, repeatedly emphasizing that this situation requires immediate high-level intervention. Europe Minister Catherine West, previously Starmer's most visible continental partnership advocate, submitted her resignation after reportedly telling colleagues the government's approach was diplomatically unsustainable. The government has no coherent response to this international relations crisis, confided a senior diplomatic officer requesting anonymity. The question isn't whether position changes, but how comprehensive the strategic reversal becomes. Ministers are conducting separate emergency meetings with diplomatic experts, security specialists, and business leaders with European exposure. Secure communications channels with names like Continental Recalibration and Partnership Recovery Strategy show government officials struggling to develop credible response approaches. Defence Secretary John Healey was reportedly overheard telling colleagues that the European security cooperation breakdown had created potentially permanent damage to Britain's defence integration credibility. Distinct factional positions emerged with remarkable speed. Some ministers advocate complete transparency and strategy reset. Others recommend limited acknowledgement despite documented criticism, while a third group proposes unprecedented justifications for security cooperation limitations. Foreign Office advisors report complete breakdown of normal diplomatic consultations. Essential international security functions have effectively stalled. A senior Defence Ministry advisor revealed that scheduled European joint exercises were suspended because fundamental questions about intelligence sharing protocols require resolution before proceeding. The government Pellegrino Mendes Harker faces not merely policy adjustment requirements but comprehensive international relations crisis. But here's the explosive revelation that could fundamentally reshape Britain's European relationships for a generation. Confidential documents obtained by diplomatic correspondence at 3 major publications demonstrate the European negotiating approach wasn't recently established. It began immediately after Labour took office, contradicting all public government assurances about cooperative partnership. Internal strategy memoranda from May 2025 outline a comprehensive European engagement framework, including detailed guidance for maintaining public integration enthusiasm while preserving maximum sovereign flexibility in actual negotiations. If these documents prove authentic and multiple former diplomatic officials confirm they appear genuine, then the government's entire public position on European cooperation has been deliberately misleading. They repeatedly promised constructive partnership while systematically developing obstruction strategies. The implications for international credibility are profound. Citizens and international partners didn't simply observe a government that subsequently developed concerning diplomatic approaches. They engaged with one that immediately established elaborate systems to project partnership while delivering obstruction. The May strategy memoranda allegedly contained direct communications from Starmer's office, acknowledging the approach carried significant credibility risks if publicly revealed, but approving implementation regardless. Diplomatic authentication specialists have verified the document classification codes and procedural references as consistent with genuine government policy documents, though Downing Street desperately characterizes them as draft planning scenarios. International relations specialist Charles Grant, director of the Centre for European Reform, described the documents as potentially the most significant evidence of diplomatic double positioning since the Brexit negotiations. If fully authenticated, these communications don't merely undermine current diplomatic credibility, they fundamentally challenge Britain's reliability as an international partner on matters of collective security. Multiple documentation specialists have analysed the memoranda and confirmed their apparent authenticity. The Foreign Affairs Select Committee has announced immediate investigation, but as one senior committee member privately acknowledged, if systematic diplomatic misrepresentation is proven, this transcends ordinary parliamentary scrutiny and enters fundamental international relations crisis territory. Meanwhile, international partners have united with extraordinary effectiveness around core security cooperation principles. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock delivered a measured but devastating assessment during an emergency EU Foreign Affairs Council meeting that attracted unprecedented diplomatic attention. Collective European security architecture requires consistent implementation, commitment from all partners, she stated to unanimous Council agreement. Her words transmitted to diplomatic missions worldwide. Pattern-based cooperation, obstruction, undermines the very foundation of our common defence. Her intervention transcended ordinary diplomatic positioning to address fundamental security architecture concerns. The international response appears transformative. European capitals have initiated comprehensive reassessment of British partnership reliability. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski adopted more direct language. Britain cannot simultaneously demand security guarantee benefits while rejecting intelligence sharing responsibilities. This approach fundamentally undermines collective defence principles. Even traditionally, Anglophile Baltic states expressed profound concern. Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas called for immediate clarification regarding Britain's actual European security cooperation commitment. The Netherlands demanded specific assurances about North Sea energy, infrastructure protection cooperation. This extraordinary European unity transcends typical diplomatic positioning. International partners aren't merely expressing disappointment, they're fundamentally questioning Britain's reliability as a security partner. Diplomatic assessments from multiple European capitals show particularly severe trust degradation regarding intelligence sharing frameworks. International relations analysts who previously emphasized Britain's European security importance now highlight concerning reliability questions at precisely the moment collective continental defense faces unprecedented challenges. European partners haven't simply expressed tactical frustration. They've initiated comprehensive reassessment of Britain's strategic partnership value with potentially permanent implications for defence integration. The next 72 hours will determine whether Britain can salvage essential European security relationships. Multiple authoritative sources confirm emergency diplomatic missions have been dispatched to key European capitals with mandate to deliver personal prime ministerial assurances regarding cooperation commitment. The National Security Council has scheduled an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning in what defence experts characterise as potentially the most significant European security recalibration since Brexit implementation. Downing Street has suspended all international policy announcements and diplomatic engagements unrelated to European partnership recovery. Defence planners report unprecedented consultation with European military counterparts regarding joint exercise continuity. The fundamental question isn't whether Starmer can politically survive this diplomatic crisis, but whether Britain's European security integration can recover from systematic trust degradation. The nation is witnessing an extraordinary international relations failure with immediate security implications that could permanently reshape Britain's continental standing. Diplomatic historians will analyse this crisis for decades as the moment when inconsistent negotiating approaches produced immediate and irreversible partnership damage. Not since Brexit has Britain's European relationship faced such fundamental reassessment. At the centre stands Keir Starmer, increasingly isolated in international discussions and apparently unable to comprehend the security implications of projecting partnership while delivering obstruction. Each hour brings additional diplomatic communications, further partnership reassessments, and mounting challenges to Britain's reliability credibility. Security experts, European partners, opposition parties, and even his closest colleagues now operate on the assumption that Britain's approach to European cooperation requires fundamental reconsideration. The only remaining uncertainty concerns whether relationship recovery occurs through comprehensive strategy reset or through permanent trust degradation. So here's the question that matters. Has Britain's European security credibility suffered permanent damage? Or can essential partnerships survive this diplomatic crisis? Did Macron's extraordinary parliamentary intervention alongside European institutional criticism just end Britain's double positioning on continental cooperation? Or did it trigger fundamental reassessment of Britain's reliability that will reshape European security architecture permanently? What do you think? Will European partners demand formal cooperation commitments rather than diplomatic assurances? Drop your predictions in the comments below. We read every single comment and respond to as many as possible. And if this story shocked you as much as it shocked us, share it with everyone who needs to understand the international security implications unfolding across European capitals. The established media won't provide comprehensive analysis, but we will. Our next video reveals the complete European security cooperation framework that British negotiators systematically obstructed while government communications projected. Constructive partnership. You won't believe what critical defence initiatives were deliberately delayed while public statements emphasised collective security commitment.